Welcome back to Under Oath. Today we have actor Mark Pellegrino. You might know him best from television shows Supernatural, Lost, and Dexter. Mark, you're here promoting a new show of yours.
American Rust, Broken Justice, with Jeff Daniels and Moira Tierney and a whole cast of great young folks.
I mean, you've been fortunate enough to be on some fantastic shows. How does this differ from being on? How does this set differ from, let's say, the set from Supernatural?
Yeah, well, first of all, it's a hardcore police drama and family drama, and Supernatural, had really heavy elements to it, but, it was more fun, especially my character was more fun. And the similarity is, Virgil Poe's a bit of the comic relief of the show, so I have great fun doing it, but the elements within it are a lot more serious.
I've been fortunate enough to watch you in a bunch of your shows. I've seen the Supernatural series a couple times. You seem to somehow capture villainous humor so well. Is that a talent?
Or maybe I'm just a bad guy, and I don't know. I sort of do what's written and then play with that, and certainly the Lucifer character in Supernatural evolved quite a bit from a really very serious heavy who had moments of very subtle humor to a lot more broad take on Lucifer. And I enjoyed playing the broad stuff because it's you get to have fun. You're a guy who can do anything he wants and have no consequences to it. And there's that kind of unhingedness is super fun to act. And so maybe I'm just that guy who's really restrained in life and really digs the opportunity to take the chains off when I'm working.
Now, what's interesting about your career is, I've had the opportunity to talk to hundreds of actors and people like that. And the weird thing is that you didn't want to be an actor. You didn't live your whole life. I want to be an actor my whole life. I want to do this. You go to college for a year, you back out, you're working, you get discovered as a model, and then you're going, I guess acting works. I mean, how does it even cross your mind that this is a good thing to do?
Yeah, it was sort of a confluence of forces, right? I did very well in school. I was getting straight A's, but I wasn't studying the classes that I wanted to study. It was I don't know if they do this now, but when you're a freshman, you get the prime spots. They push you up to the very top, and you can get all the classes you want to study for your major. And then towards the end of the year, you go back to the bottom. So you're behind 35,000 other people, and you can't get. You have your second year is basically spent wasting time gathering units. And I was just so bored. And I fell in love with a crazy girl, so that was more interesting to me at the time. But then, I was working and 19 years old and, rudderless, and, the idea of being a marine biologist had gone out the window. I wasn't so interested in that anymore. And I really felt like I had to figure out what I wanted to do. And it just so happened I was walking through a mall and saw an advertisement for a modeling school that you were supposed to pay money for, but they were offering free stuff. So I did the free stuff and fell into it. Now, that guy set me up with an agent who then set me up with a theater company that happened to be close to me and the cheapest one that I could afford with my job. And I went, and it also happened to be the best theater company, I think, on the West Coast at the time. It was somebody who was a student of Sandy Meisner. He brought the Meisner technique to L.A., and he wanted to form another group theater, which was a famous theater in the 1930s, where all the great teachers, Stella Adler, Lee Strasberg, Harold Clurman, Ilya Kazan, they all came out of that pedigree, and he wanted to start one at our school. So I was introduced to a very, very serious-minded school that really attacked acting like a craft, and I fell in love with that. Finally, I found something that I enjoyed and could center on and forget, the time passing when I was doing it. It was, and even then, when I just focused on the technique and didn't evolve into, this is a business too. I have to, meet people and be fun to be around too. It took me a while to understand that and integrate that into my work. So it's been a weird confluence of luck and determination all the way through.
When you talk about that and how this happened and the amount of effort you put in, my daughter is going to school this summer for acting from one of the state colleges. And, she asked me for my advice. And I said, listen, I don't know if I'm qualified to give it. I mean, how people get in this business and how people work in this business, whether you should go to college for 4 years or you should go to places like the one of the Meisner camps to learn this trade. I mean, what would you recommend to somebody who is actually, they're right about to graduate high school and they go, listen, I want to be an actor?
I mean, there are one or two colleges that I think can teach in a way that that could really give her some stuff. I think I think NYU, Tisch, I think Yale. Because they have people who work in the business, and so they'll constantly be working with the likes of a David Mamet or a Meryl Streep or a Bobby Lewis. Bobby Lewis was from the group theater, and he taught at Yale. But for the most part, college doesn't really teach you how to approach acting work. You could certainly learn a lot about plays and theater history, which I think is very valuable. But in the end, you have to get to a really good place that focuses exclusively on acting and that gets you up on stage all the time. Because in the end, it's about learning the concepts and then practicing them every day, if you can. The great actor Rod Steiger told me that for him, it was about being on stage at least 3 times a week. And I think he studied at the New School. So, find a great school, either in California or in New York. They're still there. And find a very good teacher who will put you on stage all the time. You don't want to go to these acting schools where you work once a month and you just watch a teacher lecture. They do 2 scenes a class. You want to be getting up there every time you're in class. And then you gotta do a lot of reading. You got to do a lot of studying. You got to read a lot of plays. You got to act in a lot of stuff. You just got to be bold and not worry about being bad. Nowadays, she's fairly fortunate because there's so much content now. People are doing movies on iPhones now. And the great thing about that is that the technology is very, it's not distracting, right? Jim Carrey used to say acting is distracting. Most films, you have a big camera and a map box in your face, and you have to have human moments with all this technology around you, and you're acting out of sequence, and it's really a sort of a bizarre set of circumstances. But when it's just an iPhone with a lens in front of you, it's almost nothing. You can still have real human interactions with somebody. So technology is changing. The technology is getting better and smaller, and there's just so much content out there. She could probably, odds are she could probably land something.
I tell you, Mark, I can't thank you enough for that advice. I think of the years that I was on sets. I do stand up. I'm also an attorney. I'm out there all the time. And I tell her that last night we had this huge discussion, and we do this at least once a week about getting along with people on the set, building relationships and everything else like that. I mean, you've been on sets all over the world. How important is that to, socialize with the actors you're working with and the directors?
Well, it took me a long time to realize that when you're in a room with a producer, they are looking at you not just as an actor, but as a potential family member that they're going to have to live with for 6 years. Because when you sign a contract, you sign like a 6-year contract, and they're looking at you. Do I want to live with this guy for the next 6 years, every single day? And it's because I used to go in there prepared and all about the work, and I wanted to talk afterwards. But that was just a guy who was insecure about the technique. I didn't have confidence. I was younger. I didn't think if I got out of the moment, if I got out of the character, I'd be able to find my way back. But you can if you know how to be suggestible and play and have fun. And it's extremely important. It's so important that I felt the difference between seasons 1 and season 2 of American Rust, because season 1, we started right when COVID hit, and then we had to drop it for months. Yeah, and then we had to pick it back up in the middle of COVID regulations, which are extremely strict. Everybody was isolated from each other. They couldn't do what a cast normally does. Normally, a cast, there's a dinner, everybody gets together, the producers, the writers, the actors are there, and then you meet each other, and afterwards, while you're working, you become friends with people, you go out with them. We didn't have that social connection before, and we were able to get some of that in season 2, and there was a real difference. But that intimacy and that likeness, that thing that you share with the other person, that chemistry off camera, that comes across on camera, and it's something you can't do homework about. It just is.
Now, when I hear you talk like that, it's amazing to me. You teach. I saw a panel you gave at one of the a friend of mine's a huge super fan of yours, and I went to. It's weird because I don't get autographs at conventions because I'm normally the one signing them, but it was the creation events that you do are these immense super fan moments where they're 2, 3 days. And I mean, how humbling is that for you to go to one of these and see the reactions you get from thousands of people watching these panels?
Yeah, what's really amazing to me is what people get out of the show Supernatural. Like you just think you're doing a show, a show about two guys fighting monsters every week, or fighting the monster of the season. But you're really doing a show about loyalty and family and love, and like American Rust, like how far will you go for love? And those themes really resonate with people, and people have found great solace from watching Supernatural, and to hear people say, "Hey, this show got me through an operation and a post-op infection. This show got me through a really, really rough time in my life." It makes me feel like, wow, I've been a party to something that wasn't even intended, but this unintended great benefit happened for somebody, and they liked the show because it drew them into a family. It made them not feel alone, and like it was possible for them to win whatever dip they happened to be in.
You know, for me, Supernatural was this fantastic show. I write comic books, so I loved all the elements about it. But what your character, what's so amazing about it is no matter what horrific things you did on that show, people still loved you. I mean, that is almost impossible to pull off.
Yeah, yeah. I guess if you're a bad guy, you got to be charismatic and or funny. And there's a part of I think everybody out there. There's that id, that part of us that's sort of that savage that wants to be released and have no consequences to what they do. I think we all sort of have that. And when we see somebody actually doing that, there's a part of us that resonates with it, whether we like it or not. It's like, I don't want to say you admire somebody like that, but you certainly are not ill-disposed towards them, especially if they're fun. I know that sounds crazy, but that's sort of, you know what I mean? Like, if the character has the charisma and or the humor, like a Hannibal Lecter. I mean, you think about the terrible things that guy did, but he was funny in a way that put you on your heels, and that draws you in. That makes you sort of on the team.
It's strange that you brought up Hannibal Lecter because I saw Anthony Hopkins at M. Butterfly on the West End, many years ago. And it takes a fantastic actor to pull that off, to be a great villain. If you want to think about the Oscars that have been given out for in the superhero genre, it's all to the villains. It never goes to the heroes. And I think that's one of the things that you pull off. And not only that, you give back on an ugly level because you teach. You go out there, you teach young actors, you try to give back to, what you've benefited from. I mean, I assume that's a huge passion of yours.
I mean, I like it better than anything in the world, because you're reaffirming principles that are good. And whenever you can reaffirm principles that are good, you feel good, right? Good acting is possible if you follow these laws of acting. And to transmit those to somebody and to help them access those laws is so, so rewarding. To see them light up when they realize something, or to see changes happen in their personality for the better, right? They become more honest, they become more clear. These are all great things. I feel like, in a way, I'm a dad. I'm a sort of a father to them, helping them grow up.
I mean, that's just an amazing thing to be able to do. Now, what I'm wondering is, when you're teaching your methods or the methods you've learned, I mean, I assume you enhance it. Whatever you've been trained on, you go, okay, well, I was taught this, but I also find out that if you do this, this, and this, I mean, or do you just stick to the methods exactly the way you were taught?
Oh no, I definitely. Part of the being an actor is on the job training and learning to transmit whatever you've been learning in class into the real world. And you definitely find you have to make tons of adjustments in the real world, because a class is a perfect setting. And the real world is not a perfect setting. It's imperfect, and it sort of conspires against a human, moment and human connection with the other person. So you definitely have to make adjustments. And my system has gone away from the heavy emotional preparation and more into homework, trust, and an attitude of suggestibility and playfulness. And oddly enough, I learned that years before I started implementing it from Danny Aiello, the great actor Danny Aiello, because I watched him act. A friend of mine had gotten a movie called Mistress, And I was on the set because I wanted to see Martin Landau work and Robert De Niro and Danny Aiello. And I watched Danny Aiello, telling stories in between takes. And so his takes had to be intense. And I was thinking to myself as a young actor, what is this guy doing? I mean, isn't he going to emotionally prepare? I mean, isn't he going to get himself in the mood, and get himself in the right emotional ballpark for the scene? Because he's just having fun here. And then he goes and does the scene, and it's great. And I realized, this is the way he keeps loose. This is the way he keeps playful. And this is the way he keeps suggestible. So you go in there, and he's light on his feet. He's on his toes. He can do anything his mind suggests to his body because he's loose. Right? That there's see, when you're rigid, you break. You're fragile. When you're loose and you're pliable, like Bruce Lee said, be like water. You flow with whatever's happening in front of you, and your subconscious becomes really immediately available to you. And I've noticed it in my own work. We did a short film that Jeff Goldblum directed called Little Surprises. It was nominated for an Academy Award. And we all wrote it. We all co-wrote the thing, and then he directed it. We did it, and I did this one scene where it's supposed to be my breakdown scene, and they did everybody else's coverage first. And then I came back after lunch at like 3 a.m. to do my coverage. But every single take, when I wasn't thinking about it, when I was free, every take was interesting. It was powerful. It was on fire. When they turned it around on me, I suddenly became self-conscious. And then it became work. And it was like, man, and I've seen other actors who are great. I've seen them tighten up just that little bit. So to me, playfulness, openness, suggestibility, that's what without result, without thinking about where I want this to go. Know what you're doing and how you feel about it, trust that and do it, see what happens.
It's always strange when you hear these stories and you hear the moments that people have. This is the first time I've done this. I had a super fan get hold of me when they found out I was doing this interview. Mary Ellen Rollins sent me a question, and I got to paraphrase this thing because it's a tough one. During Supernatural, there were moments where your character, where your body was gone, and it inhabits other actors are portraying your character, and not like versions of your character, but they're supposed to be you. When you watch an actor try to, I don't want to say mimic, but just take on what you've created, is there judgment to it, or do you just go, it's their take on it?
There was only one actor that really tried to bring my characteristics to Lucifer, and I respect that totally because I think that's just good acting. I think that's doing your homework, and that was Misha Collins. Talked to me for hours about how I would respond to various aspects of the scenes. We worked on them. What was Lucifer thinking? And we worked on scenes over and over again. And then my wife happened to be on the sidelines watching him do scenes, and they would text back and forth. If she thought he needed to put more of me in it. I think that's good acting. That's those characteristics have to translate from body to body to body because they're personality characteristics that manifest in a physical life. And Misha was the one who tried to do that. So the other guys didn't. So it wasn't me. You know what I mean? They were interesting in their own way, but definitely not Lucifer.
You brought up Misha, and you always see we've got about a little less than 2 minutes left. You always see the camaraderie on that set, and there seems to be a joy among all the actors. And the outtakes are sometimes even better than what you saw on the film. I mean, what kind of relationships do you still have with the actors you worked with on Supernatural?
Yeah, we're all friends. We're all good friends, and we see each other on the convention circuit, every year. So even though the show's been off for a couple of years, I just saw Felicia Day and Sam Smith over the weekend in Indianapolis, and the week before that I was in Burbank and saw Jensen and DJ, and yeah, so we all communicate with each other today. We're all friends today.
Well, with about a minute left, how can we see American Rust? What streaming service is it on?
So it's going to be on Prime. They're going to be releasing season 2 and I think season 1 simultaneously, so you can catch up. March 28th. Check it out. Watch both seasons 1 and 2. Watch the differences between the two because they are going to be different in a really cool way. I think season 2 is more fast paced. There's a lot more action, mystery, and crazy stuff. I mean, if you think living in a small town is boring, you haven't been to Buell.
Well, I can't thank you enough, Mark. This has been a privilege, and it's one of my favorite interviews. Thank you very much, Mark.
Thanks, man. It's great talking to you.